was I doing 10 years ago? Well, 10 years ago, let me think, 2003. So I kind of started the D.Ramirez project, say around 2000. So I was basically, that had just sort of got started, kind of getting off the ground. I was doing a lot of remixes for a label called Choo Choo that were in the same studio as me, and Choo Choo were like this big progressive house label, and that's really how I got started with D.Ramirez, because I was putting stuff out on their label, and the first records was Bounce Your DJ. It's that long ago, I even forgot what I made, but I did like 3 or 4 releases with them. We were doing something called Fingerfest Inc. We did a track called Auto Porno, and that was out around that time. That would have been when Seb Fontaine was on the radio. He was playing that kind of sound. So yeah, just heavily into kind of, and it was real tribal house back then, real dirty, progressive-y. Timo Maas was like my main influence back then, and he was making this just amazing sort of organic. It wasn't so much techno, but it was like this amazing music. So heavily influenced by him back then. And yeah, so D.Ramirez had just sort of started on his kind of journey upwards, I guess. Well, yeah, I originally got into music through being in Sheffield. Warp Records used to do a night, it was called The Steamer, and then Jive Turkey. There were 2 nights that they used to run. And so Warp had these amazing DJs, one called Winston, one called Parrot. And that really what got me into sort of going out to clubs. We used to go to this sweaty place, and the sweat was like dripping off the ceiling. Everyone was like, it was just amazing listening to this sort of really minimal Warp Records techno sound, you know. But it was all heavily based in Sheffield, because there was a real lot of stuff, you know, there was a real good sort of musical heritage in Sheffield. You know, electronic music was very influential back then. So I think it sort of moved from the likes of the Human League and Heaven 17, and they were really influential on the sort of the artists in Sheffield. So they started, you know, making this kind of stripped down minimal techno. So yeah, I got heavily involved in that. I actually got signed to Warp Records back in the sort of early 90s, and but something went wrong with it. They lost their distribution deal, so we actually didn't get the record out. But that was sort of my claim to fame back then. I got into production. I think I was lucky to be at a school where it was quite encouraged, you know, and so I was used to be in a lot of bands. And the school had like little bits of kit, so they would let you borrow them, you know. So I'd take home like a 707 drum machine, and they had like a 4-track Tascam recorder, you know. And I got into it really early. And then a mate of mine, he bought a synthesizer, a Roland SH101, around about 1984. So I kind of permanently borrowed it off him, and he's still after it now. Actually, he still keeps calling me occasionally to see where his synthesizer is. What characterizes a D.Ramirez production? That's a good question. When I first got into dance music, I was just into the sort of euphoria of music. You know, it was kind of, it would have to have like big moments, big hands in the air piano moments, and oh, you know, the whole rave thing, and rave stabs and sirens and stuff. And I guess I got sort of influenced by the likes of people like Super Chumbo were around back then, and they were just making this really sort of dark music, you know, and it was just real sort of bare bones kind of, there was nothing in it, it was a groove, you know. And I was like, I really like this. Stereo Productions were doing their thing, it was all very percussive, you know, and it was nothing going on in the track, just a groove. And I was like, this is amazing. You can actually make music it's just drums, that's all it is, you know. So that's where I kind of started with D.Ramirez. But then, as it went along a bit, it's kind of, you know, there's only so many tracks that you can do with just drums, so I sort of started incorporating a bit of melody into it. I guess the sound would be, you know, it's always kind of, it's quite drummy, with a little bit of melody, but generally quite dark. Encapsulates a sort of club that's 2 a.m., 4 a.m. in the morning. You know, they've all had a few. You know, they're getting into it. More grooves with a few little sort of highs, but not too many kind of sound. But yeah, music for people at 4 a.m. in a club, basically. I just do this for my soul, you know. I do it because I love doing it, and you know, I think as soon as something gets too big, I don't want to be known for making EDM. I don't want to be that DJ at the front of a 100,000 people festival, jumping up and down like an idiot. You know, I shan't name any names, but it just doesn't appeal to me. You know, I like dance music. I've been into dance music since its conception. You know, house music came along when I was a teenager, and it's like, I remember that, and I want to stick with it. I don't want to go off on a tangent just because I want to make a load of money. Money is obviously important to me, but feeding my soul is the most important thing.